which means you have to barge into people's homes. But with this kind of pandemic, that poses some kind of challenge. This is where the need for a film village comes in, places that are domesticated, places that are put out for the purpose of film productions and adjustable to whatever story you want to tell. There is no better time going forward for every state of Nigeria, every region, and the entire country to begin to look at this area for better investment for the entertainers in Nigeria.
All right.
Filmmakers particularly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Imasuen, for your time with us. We've been speaking to the ace filmmaker Lancelot Imasuen. Central Bank expanded its stimulus more than expected to prop up its economy, which is dealing with its worst recession since World War II. Let's see how the Naira is exchanging for other international currencies. Stock market trading closed on a downward note as Asia Pacific stocks were mixed ahead of U.S. jobs. The all-share index depreciated by minus 1.17% to close at 25,016.30 basis points. 214.4 million shares valued at 2.5 billion naira were traded in 4,342 deals, while market capitalization closed at 13.049 trillion naira. Zenith Bank, Fidelity Bank, and Guarantee Trust Bank, all of the financial industry, topped trading activity this Friday. The top gainers for the day were Sky V and Custodian. Top losers were Dangote Cement, Boa Cement, and Nigerian Breweries. Let's now see how stocks were faring on the global market, and Bosede Abel has the global stock market update.
The last trading day in the week saw global stocks soaring as investors awaited the U.S. Labor Department's latest jobs reports. U.S. stock futures were sharply higher. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures implied an opening gain at the open, while S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures were a bit lower. European markets rallied in early trading of Friday, 6th June, as investors digested an expansion of the European Central Bank's bond buying program and awaited the U.S. non-farm pay reports due in the day. Stocks in Asia were higher. In Japan, the Nikkei rose 0.74% to close at 22,863.73. Hang Seng Index jumped 1.66% as of its final hour of trading, and the Shanghai Composite topped 0.40%. Africa stocks opened mostly positive, with Namibia's overall index, Nairobi's all-share, Tunisia's Tunidex, Ghana's GSA Composite, and South Africa's GSA Africa Top 40 appreciating.
And this is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Business Express. Don't forget you can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is at NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. We value your feedback, so join us again on Monday next week for another package. And as we continue to fight COVID-19, remember to keep social distance and wash your hands with soap under running water. I am Muplang Dakok.
NTE Sports 24, where sports thrive.
I wish to once again commend the frontline workers across the country who, on a daily basis, risk everything to ensure we win this fight. For those who got infected in the line of duty, rest assured that government will do all it takes to support you and your families during this exceedingly difficult period. I will also take this opportunity to assure you all that your safety, well-being, and welfare remains paramount to our government. I am using this opportunity to express our deepest condolences to the families of all Nigerians that have lost their loved ones as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is our collective loss, and we share your grief.
NTAE brings you the best of entertainment.
I thought I was being sarcastic.
I went on to do other productions.
Everything music.
Hear which one you say.
If you look at the platforms of
For a particular product.
They call a new school playing.
That thing they hot or we go carry
The hair go come dey
and got the smell.
Somebody sad, you feel it.
Maybe just a little. I know this shop, they are already washed.
To a president.
They depended on TV.
What else can I do? Get a shower for and dancers.
Watch these programs and more on NTA Entertainment. NTAE, your one-stop entertainment channel.
You can.
Virus that came from China, and he's not the only one. Some people come to the center claiming they have a cure for the virus.
Again, commend the frontline workers across the country who, on a daily basis, risk everything to ensure we
Post-COVID-19 economy of the country was the topical issue that the senators said require more than casual attention of the board if confirmed.
Try to also distinguish between the urban poor and even the rural poor. I grew up in the village. I know that in the village there is this issue of communal effort. If you don't have food, you can go to your neighbor and certainly you can eat.
Yeah,
but in the city,
social distancing.
Yeah, but with social distance, yeah, I agree with you. Social distancing means you can even get food stuff on credits. But in the city center, the city poor or the urban poor is very, very difficult. And that's why I like the way and manner China actually handled this challenge. You know that China did not actually lock down their major cities. Beijing was not locked. And because they have a policy that you cannot just leave your village and come to Beijing. In fact, you are admitted There is what they call migration from the rural areas to the city center. On a yearly basis, it's regulated. They will even tell you the number of people that are allowed to leave their rural area and come to the city center. So that's where you have statistics, and things are working perfectly, and they will be able to know who is the poor of the poorest and how they can be able to intervene and reach them in this very difficult time. So I think this is the way to go, to now look at our peculiar situation as a country, not just copy and paste. And in this, I think our policy makers must look at this from the perspective of, yes, Nigeria have a peculiar challenge. Our population is one. We have a population that is over 200 million. You cannot compare that with any country around very close to us. You can look at even countries like India. They have data. They know the poor of the poor. And therefore, when they want to intervene, and it's high time now, we try to strengthen the National Identity Card Management Agency. I don't see any reason why for 10 years we cannot have a credible data, unified data, that every Nigerian, we should be able to have his data and know what he's doing. We should know the unemployed. We should know that those that are underemployed. We should know those that are the poor of the poorest. We should be able to do that. And I think part of the lesson of COVID-19 is that we need to have a credible data, that the National ID Card Management Agency should be able to, if we can register people during voting period or during election period in 3-4 days, what is the difficulty? If we can do census in 3 days, what is the difficulty in having a national ID card for everybody? And we have a database that we can use. It will even subsume some of the database that we're using, like the election card. If you have a national ID card, it means you can integrate also your INEC number to it, and you can use it in voting. I think that's why our political office holders are running away from this, because it brings credibility. It will mean also one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. It means also that we'll have a data that we can use, and it's very credible. And I think this is what is happening around the world. So clearly speaking, I think this is one opportunity we can use. And secondly is to look at the state of our healthcare system. And education, which is very important.
All right. Comrade Ayuba Waba, as they say, coronavirus, even as it's wreaking havoc on the economy and lives, it has also brought in the need to, as they say, think out of the box. And we'll see the initiative by certain categories of workers, and also the need to begin to produce some of the things that we need locally instead of waiting on importation. You would see easily you have all kinds of face masks now being produced locally, and certain categories of workers, even during the lockdown, have found a way to make something. Now, so how is organized labor thinking out of the box to address the numerous challenges of unemployment and underemployment, even post-COVID-19?
Thank you very much. I think this challenge of COVID-19 have exposed a lot of the inefficiencies that is very evident in our system. And I think going forward is to look at the opportunities that have been opened up arising from this challenge. And some of these opportunities are very, very obvious. And Labour have tried to document all of this, and we are engaging relevant government agencies to be able to see how best we can be able to respond to some of those issues. Jobs can be created in Nigeria, but we need to put one or two things in place. Let me give you 4 of the policy options we have given to government. 1, we have looked at the fact that in oil and gas we have comparative advantage, because God has so much blessed this country with abundant resources, be it natural gas and be it petrochemical. We are so blessed. But the main problem we have had is managing these resources effectively. Labour have said time without number, and we have engaged different governments. I recall we engaged the administration of Musa Yar'Adua, where we come up with a well-documented report, where even government said, this report is perfect. Please give us 4-year moratorium. We are going to implement this, your report. And up till now, nothing has been done. Effort were made then. 1, I don't see any wisdom in us as a country continue to import refined product.
Okay.
We applauded the issue of the private refinery, but no. In order to ensure a good competition, government must also be mindful and interested in business. And what we have proposed is that, one, let us have 2 years. Modular refineries can be built in 18 months. Even if you need to borrow money to do that, Labour is going to support you.
Okay.
Even if you're going to bring expertise, build in the entire Niger Delta region modular refineries that can engage all the youth in that region, because for now, they are even refining illegally.
Okay. So,
and that, I think, is one area we need to do. Why leave it to few people?
Okay.
And then this continue to form part of our challenge. Secondly, we have said in our agri value chain, there are a lot of values we can add. In Ghana today, they have 2 days or 1 day in a week that you must wear made in Ghana, which means they now produce what they wear.
All right.
And they now match their words with action, including the president will wear what is made in Ghana 1 day in a week. We have gone a step further to say that, well, provide for our armed forces their uniform in Nigeria, but we can go further to say that let us also try to encourage you making use of what is made in Nigeria. I tell you, in the textiles industry, if you look at the value chain from the farmer to the end user, it's a lot of opportunity.
Right.
Because with 200 million people, you are sure that if we produce what we eat, we produce what we wear, I assure you that the entire West African market, like the oil and gas, we can take over the entire West African market.
Well,
sadly, it's also the issue of fighting corruption.
Right.
And ensure that there is good governance. You can have resources like have been the case of Nigeria, but yet these resources have been squandered. So we support effectively the fight against corruption.
Right.
And so we say it's high time. Let the executive and the National Assembly put head together and put specialized court in place that can dispense with all corruption cases within 6 months at most.
I'm afraid it's at that point.
So these are some of the approaches, and these things are well documented. We have shared with some of the committees. We are sharing with some of those very critical agencies. Labour is not just aloof.
All right.
Labour is also thinking.
President,
and we have the Labour Civil Society Situation Room now working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, thinking and also strategizing and assisting government.
We've just about run out of time, and so we must leave it here. And thank you very much. There's so many issues to raise, but we're confident that you'll come again and we'll explore these issues even post-COVID-19. Once again, thank you very much, Comrade Ayuba Uwaba, President, Nigeria Labour Congress.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for sharing my thoughts with many of our viewers.
All right. And that's our program today. We thank you for watching. Next week, we'll reach you again on One-on-One. I am Cyril Stober, and I say, stay safe. Hello and welcome. I am Cyril Stober. COVID-19 is taking its toll not just on lives, but on livelihoods as well. Now, arising from the measures to beat the pandemic are serious consequences. How do you balance health with wealth when the working people are all but overwhelmed by a killer virus? COVID-19 has brought about the loss of millions of jobs worldwide, threatening economies and wreaking havoc on those infected and those not infected. My guest today is the leader of organized labor in Nigeria, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Let's welcome Comrade Ayuba Wabba. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cyril. Good evening, and good evening, viewers.
It's a tough call, isn't it? What's happening? The pandemic, it's tough on not just lives, but on livelihoods. Let's start on that premise. We've seen lockdowns, we've seen restrictions, we've seen employers shutting down, we've seen threats to jobs. Millions of jobs have already been lost worldwide. And let's come back home to Nigeria. How is this pandemic affecting employment, jobs, livelihoods?
Well, it's really a challenging period globally. It's a global catastrophe that has affected both social and economic well-being of the people, but also importantly, the health of the people. And clearly speaking, even the best economies around the world have been affected. Emerging economies are also crying. The best health system around the world have also had a lot of challenges. And weak health systems, like in developing countries, have also exposed some of the inadequacies in our health system. Importantly also, the very scarce human resource in health have been overstretched in all the countries around the world. And Nigeria is not an exception. So clearly speaking, this is really a very challenging period. In the context of Nigeria, I think it's twofolded. One is the health challenge, which I think for now all of us are aware that many have been infected. We are trying to possibly work around over 2,500. We are approaching possibly 3,000. And also in the case of fatality, I think the fatality rate also have been on the increase. But importantly, I think is means of livelihood. There have been disruption in the socio-economic life of many Nigerians. And I think it will take a very long time before we return to normalcy. Jobs are being threatened and people are losing their job on daily basis. Let me start from the premise of appreciating what the CBN have just done to try to intervene and save millions of jobs in the banking sector. I think that is what is needed at this very important time. It must be people before profit. And clearly speaking, in the context of Nigeria, where you have more than 70% of the people working in the informal sector, the challenges will be so daunting because these are people that have to go out in the morning to find what to eat in the evening. You have also the class of people are referred to as the urban poor. Those are able youths that have left the villages to come to the city centers to find something to do. And you also have the rural poor. Those are people that have remained in the villages and they are into agriculture and petty trading. So clearly, if you look at the picture, it's a picture that actually paints a lot of gloom and a lot of challenge. Clearly speaking, as you said, the ones we know are even the ones we are reporting now. But I am aware that many in the small and medium-scale enterprises have already lost their means of livelihoods. And especially those in the informal sector, the laborers, the carpenters, those people that depend on petty trading are also largely affected. And that's why when we had this window of opportunity of people, of government trying to relax the lockdown, you saw the number of people that actually dropped out. This is to tell you the magnitude of the challenge. So clearly speaking, in the context of Nigeria, both from the economic angle and from the health angle, the challenges are overwhelming. And you have seen also the number of health workers that have been infected. It's because of the fact that with the challenge, our weak health system have been exposed. And importantly, now what is happening from what I've gotten from the field is that many people visiting our health facilities, be it primary care centers, be it secondary health care centers, be it tertiary institutions, they try to hide their medical history. They also hide their travel history. And therefore, workers, those frontline workers are also left to try to now guess. And that amount to the high number of cases. Not only health workers in the isolation and treatment centers, no. Health workers in different health facilities are now also testing positive. So it's really an overwhelming challenge. We pray that the number doesn't actually pass the proportion we can manage. Because if it passes that number, it then means the challenge will be too overwhelming. So I think also the fact that the fatality rate so far, when compared to other advanced countries, we can say that our fatality rate is still, I think, under a situation that is less than 5%. So clearly speaking, I think God has been so merciful, but we need to look at the whole issue and try to respond to those challenges effectively in a well-coordinated manner, but I think in an innovative way. This is what is required at this time, but not actually to now try to shift blame or try to also look at workers as being the challenge. Workers have never been a challenge anywhere in the world. In fact, workers have been part of the process of development. We create the wealth. And if we create the wealth of any society, we shouldn't be look up at this challenging period as a burden. Workers can never be burdened. And I think that's the problem of organized labor, and particularly NLC have had with some employers. Instead of coming to the table to look at how we can discuss, because the laws are very explicit, we can discuss such issues through a collective bargaining process. And in 4 of the thematic areas that ILO have come up with for responses, country responses, one of the key areas is social dialogue. Social dialogue to address any challenge. Yes, because clearly with the challenge in the economy, there will be threat to jobs.
Right.
But we must do it in an innovative way so that the issues don't get compounded and then we go into prolonged recession, God forbid, and it's compound our issue. So this is where we are, Cyril.
Now, two issues come readily to mind, and that's even before we go into the specifics. As you have also observed, jobs have been lost daily, even in well-managed economies. We've seen layoffs. Now, we say we're part of a global system, and so some employers are beginning to say, look, if the best-run agencies, the best-run organizations have been brought to their knees and they're forced to take drastic measures in terms of job loss.
Virus that came from China, and he's not the only one. Some people come to the centre claiming they...
Hello there. Last week we had the first-year anniversary of the Buhari's second mandate in focus. Next week it will be the first official celebration of Democracy Day on that politically significant date, June 12th. In between these two commemorations is this week, which offers a poignant reflection of Nigeria the state, its political reality, its travails, and the struggle to galvanize itself into true wealth, social stability, economic buoyancy, justice, fair play, equity, and the all-important trust between the leaders and the led. This is a delicate and sensitive precinct where the wishes of the people are properly conveyed and acted upon for the development of society. This is governance in a nutshell. Today on Political Update, we will probe a bit further and interrogate the concept of true representation. We'll also give you a peep at the happenings in the political parties and stories of governance at the grassroots level. I am Fisayo Ogunfuyi. Welcome. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo led the members of the Economic Sustainability Committee in an interaction with the leadership of the National Assembly on the draft sustainability plan ahead of its submission to the President. Our own Jide Onifade brings us up to speed on this plan.
The virtual meeting, unquote, from the presidential villa was attended by the Senate President, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and several other principal officers of the National Assembly. As Vice President Yemi Osinbajo explained, the Economic Sustainability Committee called the meeting to consult with the National Assembly before the committee's report is submitted to Mr. President. Present members of the National Assembly, the Vice President noted that the President had always commended the good working relationship between the executive arm of the federal government and the current National Assembly. He added that it is very clear that COVID-19 has presented the country with an enormous economic challenge and also an opportunity. Both the Senate President and the Speaker welcomed the plan and commended the President and the Vice President for calling the meeting to enable the legislative arm of government review the plan and make comments. In the State House.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has decried a steady rise in maternal and child mortality in the country, attributing the trend to disruption of essential services in the health sector due to the coronavirus pandemic.
The PTF lamented that the fear of COVID-19 among health workers is leading to more avoidable deaths.
We've also seen life-saving maternal, newborn and child health services, routine vaccinations, access to care for chronic conditions such as HIV and other treatments not being delivered in our hospitals. And people need to be able to access care.
New criteria for discharging confirmed cases of COVID-19 were announced.
If you're symptomatic, you can be discharged if you have had 3 days without symptoms, in addition to at least 10 days of symptoms. If you're asymptomatic, we can discharge you. You can be discharged 14 days after your first PCR positive test. So we no longer have to wait for a negative test to discharge. You can be discharged 14 days after your first positive with confidence that you can go home, that you're no longer infective, and you're not at risk you're not putting your family, your friends, or anyone else at risk if you're asymptomatic.
The task force, however, advises against self-medication for COVID-19.
WHO continues to emphasize there is still no evidence that hydroxychloroquine or any other drug is effective in treating or preventing COVID-19.
States and local governments are urged to take ownership of managing the pandemic in their domains.
State oversight of this phase of the response is very critical. The response needs to be decentralized to the local government level, identifying high-burden local governments to rapidly trace, test, and treat cases.
The daily epidemic curve of confirmed cases shows a consistently rising trajectory with corresponding increase in fatalities.
The task force emphasized that it is not a procurement body and does not award contracts, urging the public to beware of fraudsters.
And now to our discussion. A research by the Matthias Wessel-Tromberg in the Legislative Studies Quarterly posits that legislative responsiveness to constituent demands is integral to the concept of representation. The theoretical model suggests that the district demands for legislative resources is determined by the district's relative deprivation of such resources. Legislators also have an electoral incentive to district demand due to the inherent political credits. Today on Political Update, we have Honorable Reverend Francis Ejirogene Waive. He is the member representing Ughelli North, Ughelli South, and Udu Federal Constituency of Delta State. Thank you for joining us on Political Update.
It's my pleasure.
Being a reverend and an honorable member means that you are sensitive to the expectations of the people, both physical and celestial.
Of course, and throughout my pastoral ministry, social work was an integral part to be able to reach people at the level of need and bring them to the Lord.
And now tell us a bit about your experiences, especially during the lockdown, and your sensitive contributions in this direction, especially in your constituency. Now that, of course, it's been eased gradually, but at the height of it all, what was your interaction like with your constituents?
Yeah, my people, the good people of Ughelli North, Ughelli South, and Udu of Delta State, they went through the challenges that every other person in this country, and indeed the world, because it's a worldwide pandemic, they went through the same thing, be it economic, security-wise, health-wise. They went through the same thing during this period of the lockdown. Economic challenges were there. People, especially for those who earn their living per day, it was very difficult to survive. And we had to intervene in several ways. First, the National Assembly, we donated our salaries for 2 months. That's on a national level. Then at an individual level, I personally made donations of foodstuffs, palliatives, to vulnerable women in the 3 local government areas, costing me quite a lot. And also I made donations to each of the local government councils because each of them had their own palliative committee, as it were.
And a structure.
A structure. So I collaborated with the chairman, made a donation there, and on, that's what we did. And hoping that God, in his mercies, has kept our people. There are a few cases in our constituency, and we've also had to have talks with our people to ensure that they observe the protocol so that we don't experience a hike, through community transmission. And so far, so good, it's been manageable.
All right, let's look at it from the legislative perspective now. Have you been part of any, perhaps legislative concept to perhaps, adjust to this new normal and perhaps speed up the healing processes in terms of economy, in terms of even general social welfare of the people? Are you part of some discussions?
I am Elizabeth Abad. I am here to talk about facts. There is so much misinformation and distortion out there, especially on the social media. All it takes is just a click and the fake news goes viral. However, here in NTA, we deal with facts.
My job is to go out there and comb for factual news and information, just the way it is, all in the interest of the nation. I'm Najaa Tutijani.
Here on the NCA, we present only the facts, verified. Beware of fake news, don't be a victim. Stay tuned to the NCA.
Especially at this time of the coronavirus pandemic.
My name is Nnamdi Ojipo.
Enemies have no face. They are indigents of no state. They come from no place. And if this boat capsizes, every one of us will go under. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer. Do not say, I am the Iroko when the forest is burning. Do not say, I am the Obeche when the forest is burning. Our differences will not stop us from perishing together. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer.
You are welcome to NTA Nationwide with me, Najaa Tutijani. For the first time in nearly 3 months, Jumat congregational prayers have been observed in the State House Mosque. President Muhammadu Buhari was among the worshippers, and details will come in our subsequent bulletin. Now, Muslims Muslim worshippers at the Area 10 Jumat Mosque once again observed the congregational Jumat prayer following the reopening of worship centers in the FCT. Abdullahi Ajia reports that the Imam's sermon was centered on thanksgiving to Allah for the faithfulness and mercy against all odds of the pandemic.
For the first time after the reopening of worship centers in the FCT for prayers to be observed under health protocol guidelines, worshippers at the Area 10 Jumat Mosque converged to worship Allah with much sensitization by the mosque management and the Imam on practical safety measures put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The sermon reawakens faith in the worshippers to give thanks to Allah for life and health despite the ongoing public health battle that has prevented congregational Jumat for so many weeks.
We are happy and we are lucky and we are grateful, thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this reopening of worshiping centers to be actualized.
Musa Ali Gosa was one among many worshippers who said he feels spiritually enthusiastic attending the Jumat prayer again.
Last time we pray after the lockdown, and we have to appreciate God for everything that we have found ourselves. If in my lifetime they tell me that something will happen like this, I won't believe it. But I have seen it with myself, and I witness it, and I believe and I pray this thing will be the first and the last.
A special supplication was offered to Allah to urgently intervene as a way of providing quick solution to the pandemic, as the mosque officials promised to continue to enforce compliance to the set guidelines for safety. Abdullahi Ajia, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 350 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, increasing the total number of confirmed cases to 11,516. Of the 350 new cases, 102 are in Lagos, 34 in Ogun, 29 in the FCT, 26 in Borno, 23 in Kaduna, while Rivers State has 21. In Ebonyi, there are 17 cases, 16 in Kwara, 14 in Katsina, 10 cases in Edo, Delta, Kano and Bauchi, while Bayelsa has 9, 8 in Imo, 4 in Plateau, 3 in Ondo, and 2 in Nasarawa, while there is one case in Gombe and Oyo State as well. Lagos State now has a total of 5,542 cases, followed by Kano with 980, while the FCT has 792 cases confirmed. In total, there are 7,658 active cases, while 3,535 patients have been discharged, with 323 deaths recorded so far. Kano State Government is to embark on house-to-house sample collection of suspected COVID-19 cases as part of measures to curb further spread of the disease. Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje disclosed this during a periodic media briefing on the COVID-19 response. Abdullahi Mustafa reports.
Since the last 2 months when Kano recorded its COVID-19 index case, more than 5,000 samples were tested, out of which 970 tested positive. So far, more than 300 patients have been treated and discharged, while 45 died. Although the number of positive cases is declining in Kano, Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje assured the state government will continue to initiate additional containment measures. Already, he disclosed plans are on to commence house-to-house collection of samples to address the challenges of resistance and difficulty in visiting testing and sample collection centers.
Whatever we do to fight this infectious disease must be sustained. There's no time to go back. There's no time to relax our efforts, especially that we are being motivated that we are achieving some results.
Numerous other measures have been in place by the State Task Force on COVID-19 and the Technical Response Team, while the Palliatives Committee reported the successful completion of the second phase of distribution. In Kano, Abdullahi Mustafa, NTA News.
As the number of coronavirus cases in Nigeria keeps rising, the country's COVID-19 Situation Room and Research Center, a group of civil society organizations, is strengthening partnership with the Nigerian Television Authority (NTA) to enhance strategic monitoring and advocating compliance with safety measures. This partnership was agreed upon when the COVID-19 Situation Room and Research Center visited the management of the NTA. Oluseye Adiagbo tells us more.
To augment efforts of governments and health authorities in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, civil society organizations set up COVID-19 Situation Room and Research Center to collect data of cases across states and carry out enlightenments on prevention and control to the pandemic. Owubaya Breakford, who led the team, acknowledged the immense efforts of the NTA to contain the pandemic, which is why the partnership to collectively fight it.
We must complement the effort of the government. The government have done so much, and the issue is not about the government, it's about the people, our self-preservation. The government wants us to be alive, want the citizens to be alive. So we will not just fold our hands and say, oh, it is government business. That is what we have come out.
Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, restated NTA's willingness to support every initiative that will make Nigeria better.
I'm glad that the civil society organizations that have always played a very important role in how things are done in this country decided to come together, put their resources together and join in the fight against COVID-19. I think this is a very commendable initiative, and we in NTA commend you for that. And I want to assure you that we will be there for you.
The new partnership is expected to complement the efforts of all in the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria. In Abuja, Oluseye Adiagbo, NTA News.
Now we'll return to the story of the first congregational prayer held at State House after the lockdown. Adamu Sambo has the report.
La ilaha illallah.
The resumption of Jumat prayers in Abuja and other parts of the country followed the reopening of most segments of the nation's economy from the COVID-19 lockdown as efforts are intensified towards flattening the curve. The chief imam of the State House Masjid, Ustaz Abdul Wahid Suleiman, led the prayers in conformity with stipulated guidelines on physical distancing. Allahu Akbar. The presiding imam admonished the Muslim faithful to at all times listen to health authorities, support and show understanding with the nation's leaders in the task of containing the coronavirus pandemic. He said nothing happens on the face of the earth that is not destined by Allah. Ustaz Suleiman, however, explained that solutions lie in prayers to Allah, taking precautionary measures, accepting responsibility, and avoiding acts contrary to the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad. For the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, President Muhammadu Buhari once again demonstrated leadership by example.
The president as a citizen himself, but beyond that, as a leader of the people. He has a duty to show the Nigerian public the way to observe the prescribed protocols as they exist in the FCT. And I think this is what the president had done. Going through the check, who is going into the mosque? And then they sanitize their own hands. And then they keep social distance, inside. So all of it is to show Nigerians this is the way, and that is the responsibility of leadership. Without this, the war against coronavirus cannot be defeated. Otherwise, all of the gains that have been made will be reversed. So I think this is an essential lesson President Buhari has indicated and should be observed by Nigerians.
Let's thank Almighty God for seeing this improvement and development. And let's continue praying that let's see the end of this coronavirus. And secondly, for the Nigerian youth, let them abide by the guidelines given by the PTF, and I'm sure the guidelines will pave a lot of ways for the ease of lockdown and movement within the country.
Special prayers were offered to Allah for an end to COVID-19 as well as sustainable peace and prosperity of the country. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Now, at a time when humanity is gasping for breath in the battle to survive, comes a pandemic suspected to be rooted in the wild. Global attention now remains fixed on better ways of interacting with Mother Earth. In commemorating World Environment Day 2020, the United Nations believes it is time for man to focus on the roles nature plays in providing infrastructure needed to support life on Earth and human development. Onengie Fineface reports.
World Environment Day 2020 acknowledges it is time for people to pay attention to nature, on which humans depend for health, water, food, medicines, and other essentials for healthy living.
There's a lot of plants of medicinal value that are becoming extinct, a lot of animals that are endangered and becoming extinct. The butterflies have practically disappeared from our environment, and they're not just for beautification, they actually aid in pollination and give us fruits. So as we celebrate this World Environment Day, we need to appreciate nature, we need to reflect, and we need to take definite steps to conserve nature.
Time for nature. The theme for World Environment Day 2020 advocates deliberate action from individuals, communities, and governments of the world to protect, conserve, and respect other lives on Earth.
Everyone should join one bird club or the other. Abuja has its own, the Abuja Bird Club. There are bird clubs all over Nigeria. We go out, we watch, we explore nature, we take the statistics, we look at how nature is thriving. Over the years, we can have a pattern of improvement or degradation, then we know how to mitigate.
In line with this commemoration, Nigeria has policies to conserve its biodiversity, some of which include planting of 25 million trees and ongoing efforts at cleaning pollution-impacted sites in the Niger Delta region.
As a nation, Nigeria remains committed to maintaining a healthy environment and safeguarding our ecosystems. The pandemic has shown us that we need to find ways to live in harmony with one another and, of course, with nature.
Creating time for nature affords man the opportunity to address deforestation, climate variations and change, biodiversity loss, pollution, ozone depletion, and other unhealthy environmental practices. In Abuja, Onengie Fineface, NTA News.
Time to head to Lagos, and Michael is there for more reports and nationwide. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Najatu. 5th of June every year is used to promote worldwide awareness and actions to protect and save the environment. This year, the focus is on the need to better harness the abundant resources that nature has provided and the key role biodiversity plays in taming the raging coronavirus. Environment correspondent Jennifer Igwe is set to tell us the views of environmentalists on 2020 World Environment Day theme. Hello, Jennifer.
Thank you, Studio. Now, the slogan for World Environment Day 2020 is Time for Nature, with a theme centered on biodiversity. This is because biodiversity is the foundation for all life on land and below water. It shows the connection between us and nature's resources and how biodiversity can help in ensuring that we have clean air, good environment, healthy food. It can also help with scientific research and data, and how natural resources can help us in the management of diseases.
The effect of COVID-19 in the arid area, the very cold environment, is different from what we have in Africa. This can also be said to affect the kind of medicines or the kind of remedies that could be chunked out for different parts of the world.
World Environment Day is also used to amplify campaigns to protect endangered species. Now, illegal trade in wildlife is something that is happening all around the world, and many creatures that they trade illegally are endangered and might totally be wiped out from the surface of the earth and have crucial value that they add to the ecosystem. Examples are the pangolins and sea turtles.
It has been said that 75% of infectious diseases that affect humans are from the wild. And why? Because we have decided to interrupt in the normal flow. We forget the fact that we are part of the biodiversity. We are not away from it. We are part of it. And if we destroy that complex web, if we destroy that balance that nature has created, we will do it at our detriment.
Experts are also saying that zoonotic diseases that we've been having in recent times, and I mean diseases that can be transferred from animals to humans, and even the COVID-19 should be a wake-up call on how we relate with the environment and creatures in it. Back to you, studio.
Coronavirus is still taking many out in nations around the world, including Nigeria. In spite of the increasing number of deaths globally, some Lagosians are beginning to relax and are no longer afraid of the deadly virus. Again, Jennifer Igwe reports.
5 months after the first case of COVID-19 in Nigeria, more have been recorded. There have been recoveries and deaths, with awareness campaigns intensified. More testing centers have been created, including safety guidelines and palliative measures. So, coronavirus, being the most topical issue in Nigeria, is stating the obvious. The initial fear some Lagosians have of the killer virus has been given a back seat in their scale of dreaded challenges.
Before coronavirus, there has been death, isn't it? So, and what are we talking about? Even aside coronavirus, there are still deaths.
When it first came to Nigeria, everybody was scared. You can see people, everybody was shutting down and stuff. Even me, I was personally scared. Let me know that. So, but now, see the time is after 4. Even no nose mask safe.
Some Lagosians, on the other hand, have taken a hard line on safety measures to keep coronavirus far away. They are unwavering in their resolve to fight the global unseen and ferocious enemy.
Prevent yourself. You must do that. Cover your nose, wash your hand regularly, sanitize your hand.
It's happening all over the world, you know. So let us take it serious, and let us also adhere to the advice that the government asks us to do.
Whichever side of the fence Lagosians pitch their tent, experts say doubts and laissez-faire attitude towards the deadly virus should be thrown away and adherence to safety guidelines sustained, as coronavirus gives no notice before it strikes. In Lagos, Jennifer Igwe, NTA News.
Those are the stories trending from Lagos. The news continues shortly after this break. Please stay tuned.
I wish to once again commend the frontline workers across the country who, on a daily basis, risk everything to ensure we win this fight. For those who got infected in the line of duty, rest assured that government will do all it takes to support you and your families during this exceedingly difficult period. I will also take this opportunity to assure you all that your safety, well-being, and welfare remains paramount to our government. I am using this opportunity to express our deepest condolences to the families of all Nigerians that have lost their loved ones as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is our collective loss, and we share your grief.
Nigerians, let us take responsibility. Stay healthy, stay safe, and curb the spread of the virus. Take responsibility. The coronavirus spreads from one person to another. Let us avoid crowd gathering of any kind for any reason. Take responsibility. Avoid traveling from one state to another during these lockdown restrictions. Obey all the rules that are put in place. Take responsibility. Stop spreading fake news and unverified reports about the coronavirus. There is no known cure for COVID-19. Take responsibility. Observe all the measures that can help stop the spread of the virus. Together, we can do this, but only if we take responsibility. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
In times like this, the coronavirus is spreading so fast. The use of face masks has become very vital. More importantly, for the elderly in the society whom their immune system is not strong enough to fight the disease. If you must go out, use a face mask. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Wear your mask, I wear my mask. So much to do, but stay at home for your own safety. Make an extra washable mask and share with your neighbor. Everyone should use a face mask once you leave home to be safe from the coronavirus, especially the elderly persons in our society. Protect me, I'll protect you. This message was brought to you by the Coalition of Societies for the Right of Older Persons in Nigeria, COSRAPPing, in collaboration with the National.
There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Thanks for staying with NTA Nationwide. A bank robbery in Isonluyagba East local government area of Kogi State has left several persons dead, including a divisional police officer of the area. Reports say the armed robbers forced their way into the bank in the afternoon and carted away valuables and cash. Special advisor to the Kogi State Governor on Security, Jerry Omodara, who spoke to NTA correspondent Francis Udojo behind the camera, said investigations into the incident are still ongoing. Calm has, however, been restored to the area. Meanwhile, Kogi State Governor Yahya Bello has prevailed on security agencies in the state to go after the criminals who carried out Thursday's bank robbery. Governor Bello gave the directive and condoled with families of those who lost loved ones in the unfortunate attack. He charged residents of the state to readily assist the security operatives in their own way by providing useful information to help combat crime in the state. In the meantime, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, has ordered a full-scale manhunt for the perpetrators of the crime. In a statement, the IGP condemns the incident and has deployed a team of crack detectives from the Intelligence Response Team, the Special Tactical Squad, and Federal SARS to Kogi State to ensure that the criminals are apprehended and brought to book. The IGP has also directed the Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Zone 8 Police Headquarters, Lokoja, to immediately assess and review the security arrangement in Kogi State and environs to prevent any future occurrence of such untoward incident in the state. The AIG is to personally oversee the ongoing investigations into the attack and coordinate intelligence that will lead to unearthing the whereabouts of the hoodlums and the circumstances surrounding the unfortunate incident. In line with the presidential directive on new policing tactics to combat crimes across the nation, the Akwa Ibom State Police Command has continued to strengthen its community policing network, especially around border communities. Clement Barikui reports from a border community in Oron local government area of Akwa Ibom State.
Uyo to Oron is not less than 53 kilometers, and considering its proximity to Cross River State and Cameroon via the Atlantic Ocean, there is need to put in place a security system that is closer to the people, and this is what the Community Policing Advisory Committees will address.
If you look at Oron, it's very porous, so you see many beaches everywhere. I'm happy Mr. President, in his wisdom, had to give a command that these things must be put back in place.
When you live near the beach, the coastal people coming from other places. So if you have any crime, it may not be around people alone.
Despite the seeming security challenges that most border towns around the world usually faced, the situation in Oron is different.
Communities that have boundaries with other countries and boundaries with other states, there's always that possibility of increased crime rates there. But fortunately for Oron, even before now, they already have internal community policing mechanisms. If you notice, the crime rate in Oron is low because they have structures through which they resolve crime issues and community issues before they escalate.
The existence of the local government and area command community policing advisory committees is simply to strengthen already established structures in Oron for effective policing. In Oron local government area, Clement Barikui, NTA News.
The Nigerian Army Force Special Forces Command says elimination of insurgencies and terrorism from Nigeria is a task that must be done. Commander of the Special Forces, Major General Monday Gadzama Ali, gave the assurance when he visited Governor Samuel Otom at the Government House, Makurdi.
The Special Forces, which has as its maxim the conquerors, is committed to decimate and possibly eliminate criminal elements.
The force is going to be in charge of the entire country. It is meant to serve in curtailing those parodies as they unfold in the country, both internally and externally.
Governor Samuel Otom, who commended the federal government and the strategies of security formations for strengthening the security apparatus, noted that Benue has confidence in the security operatives.
So for the Chief of Staff to have thought that there is need to bring in more forces to cover our zone here, to have deployed you with the headquarters in Doma, it is something worthy of note and appreciation.
He further expressed optimism that the presence of the 4th Special Forces Command in the zone would sustain the relative peace in Benue State. In Makurdi, Charles Abba, NTA News.
Thank you, Charles. Asma'u in Sokoto is next in line for Nationwide.
Thank you, Najatu. Good afternoon and welcome to Sokoto. As the world marks Environmental Day, Abdurrahman Osman Jibrila speaks to the coordinator, Great Green Wall Project in Sokoto, on the journey so far.
Thank you, studios. As the world marks the Environment Day, desertification is one of the major challenges of environment, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. And Sokoto happens to be among the states with the challenge. The federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Environment in 2013, established the Great Green Wall Project to curb the problem. And with me is the state coordinator in Sokoto State for the Great Green Wall Project, who is Mr. Minkailo Musa. Sir, good afternoon, and how far with the project in Sokoto State?
Thank you for having me. The agency that is saddled with responsibility of fighting desertification under the Ministry of Environment. The Ministry of Environment is National Agency for the Great Green Wall. And fighting desertification, we are raising 1.3 million seedlings at 3 nurseries. And so far, we have gone so far. And we are just awaiting for rain to start, so that we'll go to the field and start planting where we are having serious desertification. The issue of desertification is a problem to our people in the northern part of the country. If you go to Gudu, go to Gada, see people moving out because they've lost what they have. Because of desertification, they cannot farm. They need a lot of manure. And so these are the issues that we are contending with and that the agency is dealing with.
Thank you, the controller of the Great Green Wall project in Sokoto State. You've had it all on the effort of the project embarked upon by the Federal Ministry of Environment in Sokoto State. Back to the studios.
Thank you, Abdurrahman. Kebbi State Command of the Nigeria Customs Service has impounded contraband items with duty value of over 250 million naira. Nuratanko Wakili reports that the Custom Area Controller Kebbi State Command, Yusuf Garba, while briefing newsmen, reiterated their resolve to fight smuggling activities and ensure compliance with COVID-19 measures on restriction of movement across the borders.
The Kebbi State Command of the Nigeria Customs Service was created last year to focus mainly on anti-smuggling activities in the state, which shares border with Niger and Benin republics. In February to date, the command has seized over 1,050 kilogram bags of rice, 3,159 bags of foreign fertilizer, 4 truckloads of hide and skin, and 227 bales of new textile materials. Others include 171 bales of second-hand clothes, 256 cartons of lightning cream, 90 sacks of power snap, as well as 43 cars and other sundry items. These items, the controller said, forms part of the federal government prohibition list following the partial closure of the country's land borders, and 5 suspects have been arrested in connection with the seizures. The feat, he said, was achieved in spite of resistance from smugglers.
We are out to deal with any smuggler that decided to violate the federal government border closure. And as a service, we will stand firm and protect that policy, because that is what we are made to do.
On the ravaging coronavirus pandemic, the area controller said, in addition to the palliatives donated through the directives of the federal government, the command has sensitized its officers and men at various formations on safety measures. In Birnin Kebbi, Nuratanko Wakili, NTA News.
And that's it from Sokoto. The news will continue with Najatu in Abuja.
Thank you very much, Asma'u. The chairman of Senate Services, Senator Muhammad Sani Musa, says the National Assembly structure is 20 years old and ripe for immediate renovation to avert danger. He stated this while reacting to some Nigerians who are calling for the outright removal of the appropriation for the renovation of the National Assembly complex. Senator Sani further emphasized that the fund is under the management of the Federal Capital Territory Administration's budget and not that of the National Assembly.
Services. I am of the opinion that the National Assembly needs renovation. The structure has been there for over 20 years. It has never been taken care of. The dome is almost like going to go down soon. So renovation is necessary. But in terms of how much is allocated or who is going to do it, it's not within my purview as it is today. Because it's not the National Assembly, it's the Federal Capital Territory, which I know very well. The Ministry of Federal Capital Territory are the ones that are taking care of all the strategic government assets, strategic government buildings, like the Federal Secretariat, International Conference Center, all those strategic buildings. So you can imagine, even the resident of the presiding officers, who is handling it? In terms of allocation of residing quarters for officers, who is doing it? This is FCT.
37 billion naira was approved in the 2020 budget for the renovation, but has since been slashed to 9.2 billion in the revised Appropriation Act Amendment Bill. 3 correctional facilities in Kano State have benefited from the benevolence of the management of the Sani Abacha Youth Center with the donation of personal protective kits against COVID-19 for inmates to give them a sense of belonging. Yahana Suhasambaro reports.
That won't make them to feel free, that we are much concerned of their life as if they are within the society.
This is one of the many reasons why the management of Sani Abacha Youth Center donated palliatives to Nigeria Correctional Service in Kano to halt further spread of the highly contagious virus. Items donated includes hand wash, hand sanitizer, disinfectants, infrared thermometer, face mask, and water containers, among others. While noting the contributions of older, well-meaning individuals and organizations in complementing the efforts of the government in eradicating the pandemic, the controller of the correctional service was appreciative of the donors.
That had been given to inmates, my officers and men, and to the general public at large cannot be quantified.
Similarly, the Sani Abacha Youth Center also extends hands of love and care to people with special needs in different clusters.
We are not going to have gatherings because of social distancing, so definitely we'll be sending all the packages to their homes, wherever they are.
In Kano, Yahana Sahasambaro, NTA News.
In a bid to strategically reposition the Federal Road Safety Corps for optimum performance, the Corps Marshal Dr. Boboye Oyeyemi has approved the redeployment of 119 officers of the ranks of Assistant Corps Marshals, Corps Commanders, Deputy Corps Commanders and intermediate ranks, who are all expected to report to their new commands on or before Friday, 12 June 2020. A statement by Chief Route Commander Media, Sani Abdullahi, indicates that apart from Enugu, Ilorin, Benin, Port Harcourt, Jos, Bauchi and Abuja zonal commands, all other zonal commanding officers remain in their respective areas of authority. Expectedly, out of the 37 sector commanders, 17 retain their positions, while the remaining 20 state sector commands have been affected. Deputy Corps commanders who were also redeployed include the Deputy Corps Public Education Officer, who is now the Deputy Corps Commander in charge of Logistics, FCT Sector Command, and the Acting Corps Provost, who is now the Deputy Corps Commander in charge of operations in the FCT. More reports on World Environment Day when we join Chinenye in Enugu.
Thank you, Naja Atu, and welcome to Enugu. On this year's World Environment Day, the need for preservation of biodiversity is in focus as environmental experts call for strengthening of policies and legal framework to protect the environment. Jude Abugu has more on this.
The focus on biodiversity as the theme of this year's World Environment Day is to encourage people all over the world to protect the planet's natural habitat, which is the source of food, water, and air that people breathe. According to United Nations Environment Programme, biodiversity is under serious threat globally due to rising cases of bush burning, deforestation, carbon emission, and current global pandemic. As a result of this, environmental experts are calling for a renewed commitment on the part of global leaders to protect and preserve biodiversity. In Nigeria as a nation, it is the view of environmentalists that government at all levels should be involved in the campaign to save some species of plants and wildlife from going into extinction.
Government has to marshal out institutional and legislative framework with enough enforcement mechanism and preserve certain areas as biodiversity centers. And moreover, government should make sure every project that has to be constructed in Nigeria, which is what is obtainable overseas, there must be a conduct of environmental impact assessment.
This annual event encourages worldwide awareness and action for the protection of environment. In Enugu, Jude Abugu, NTA News.
And with me here in the studio today to talk on the World Environment Day is the head, Department of Climate Change, Ministry of Environment and Mineral Resources, Enugu State, Mr. Nnamdi Arum. Mr. Arum, you're welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so today is World Environment Day, and the theme of this year's celebration focuses on biodiversity. And biodiversity is said to be under threat due to rising cases of bush burning, deforestation, carbon emission, to mention a few. And these are man-made acts. How do we discourage people from these practices?
Thank you very much, the presenter. The issue of biodiversity is a world-known issue as we talk today, as we speak today. When you talk of all those mayhem that people cause, we call it anthropogenic activities. The fact is that people should learn to appreciate what the nature has given us. People should learn. The appreciation is one. People should now learn to know that there is interrelationship between every organism. When you call the food chain, what you call the ecosystem, the ecological balance, the biotic environment itself. So give them that very responsibility of appreciating, knowing fully well that whatsoever you harm have a direct or indirect effect on you. So the fact as we speak today is trying to let them make the awareness, as Minister of Environment had been doing, environment awareness creation even to the grassroots. As we speak today, we have desk officers, even in the local government. So most of them understand intrinsically what it means to preserve even the life of a mosquito. It might sound so funny because mosquito has an interrelationship with other species. They are in that very food chain. So I believe that what you need to do first is a kind of awareness creation. Allow them to appreciate. Then by appreciation, they themselves will know what it means to preserve. When you talk of tree deforestation, when you talk of so many mayhem caused, when you tell them what deforestation will cause, they themselves will start preserving, because preserving those things is what preserving biodiversity, which man is an integral part of.
Okay, now you're talking about the need to appreciate nature. How do we encourage people to protect the planet's natural habitat?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Protecting the world natural habitat is trying to tell them human beings want to first of all preserve their life. Whatsoever you're doing is what encourages whatever makes you to live. Therefore, anything you tell, whenever you tell somebody that this thing is going to one day affect your life, that person will have a change of character. So that is why I see it, educating, awareness, making somebody to appreciate. Immediately you do that, that is the educational part of it. Immediately you do that, the person will know that this is my responsibility of preservation. Okay. When I talk of deforestation, when you tell somebody that deforestation is going to increase the emission of carbon dioxide, which will in turn cause global warming, and your generation is at risk. Okay. That person will plant instead of deforesting.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Arum. I have been speaking with Mr. Nnamdi Arum. He is the head Department of Climate Change, Ministry of Environment, Enugu State. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
And it's now time to rejoin Naja Atu in our Abuja Network studios for more on Nationwide.
Thank you very much. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has expressed concern over early warning signals ahead of the conduct of party primaries in the Edo and Ondo state governorship elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu stated this at an interagency consultative meeting on election security. Mayor Ogidi reports.
Political party offices getting busier. Steps by party chieftains faster, and INEC also busy in the internet space, chatting with stakeholders as the race to the number one seats in Edo and Ondo states heightened. More than 2.2 million registered voters warming up in Edo State for September 19th, and over 1.8 million registered voters on the wings for the Ondo October 10th day of decision. INEC stakeholders meeting with resident electoral commissioners, civil society organizations, the media and the security agencies, though in separate days, ended this Friday, June 5. All done online.
Are you hearing me? So thank you very much, representative of the NSA. Hello? You can hear me very clearly.
Internet challenges experienced in the new normal. Such movements are inevitable, the INEC chair says on a lighter note. 15 political parties as of Friday, June 5, have indicated interest to conduct their party primaries in Edo, and INEC gives advice to the political parties for smooth conduct in the primaries and the need for security agencies to be on the alert.
Already there are warning signals. The security agencies need to act proactively. An early engagement with the political parties and aspirants is necessary in order to create the atmosphere for peaceful primaries and consequently peaceful elections.
The 10-point policy document on the conduct of the elections in the midst of COVID-19 was at the center of discussion, zooming into the issue of no party or candidate branded face mask at the polling units and the issue of social distancing in all the election activities. Mie Ogede, NT News.
Now, the All Progressives Congress has announced 6 governorship aspirants to be screened for the party's 2020 primary election to elect the party's Edo State governorship candidate. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Larry Isa Oniru, the APC says 6 aspirants who have bought, completed and submitted the party's expression of interest and nomination forms are Pastor Osagi Izeyamu, Godwin Obaseki, Dr. Pius Udubu, Chris Ogemoni, Osaro Obazi and Matthew Abunezi. The primary election will hold on Monday, 22nd June 2020, while election appeal has been slated for Wednesday, 24th June 2020. Meanwhile, the federal government is planning to empower 77,400 young farmers on agribusiness through the National Agriculture Land Development Authority, NALDA. The Executive Secretary of NALDA, Paul Ikone, said this at a news conference. He said young farmers will be drawn from the 774 local government areas of the country with a pilot number of 100 per LGA, adding that under this initiative, NALDA will partner governors for provision of land, saying this will create employment and food production will be increased. NALDA was established in 1992 but ceased to exist and function in 2000, but now President Muhammadu Buhari has revived it. Now let's join Ogo Chukwuka in Benin.
Good afternoon. The global lockdown caused by the prevailing coronavirus pandemic has meant that less damage is now being done to the ecosystem and the environment. Man's consciousness of and friendliness with the environment has been thrown into bold relief. This is even as the world celebrates this year's Environment Day. Ifoma Okafo reports.
World Environment Day is held each year on June 5 as one of the principal vehicles through which the United Nations stimulates worldwide awareness of the environment. The day enhances political attention and action for the protection and improvement of the environment. The loss of genetic diversity and reduction in most plants and animals are primarily caused by human impacts. No wonder this year's theme for World Environment Day, which is celebrates biodiversity, is hinged on the need for interdependence of humans and the webs of life in which they exist. With the world fighting war against COVID-19 and how reduction in human activities due to lockdown have improved on environment, it becomes imperative to look inwards.
The little animals, we have pushed them far, we have pushed them away from their natural habitat, and we have pushed most of them into extinction. The burning of fossil fuel has reduced. Some animals that are sound sensitive are now they cannot dwell in their natural habitat like the sea.
Human factor has been a very big problem to these animals. People now are indoors, so even most of these hunters, they hardly go out again.
It is therefore expected that as the environment is rejuvenated due to the measures put in place to check the pandemic, it is hoped that the practice of environmental friendliness will continue in order to sustain the environment. In Benin, Ifeoma Okafor, NTA News.
Delta State government is appealing to well-meaning Nigerians and corporate organizations to continue to support the vulnerable persons who are facing hardship occasioned by COVID-19 pandemic. The secretary to the state government, Chiedu ABA, made a call at the distribution of palliatives by the Victim Support Committee on COVID-19. Tessie Koka reports. The governor, represented by the secretary to the state government, Chiedu Ebie, expressed appreciation to all previous donors, noting that the food items and other materials donated have made life better for the vulnerable persons in the state. He thanked the Victim Support Committee COVID-19 Task Force for facilitating other round of palliatives for the people.
We appreciate each and every one of you and working tirelessly and going around the country to support and to provide for each of the states and the extension
we want to be able to make sure that we take the support beyond the Northeast to other parts of the country, especially because COVID-19 is not strategically targeted enough. COVID-19 is all over the country, and Delta State has a couple of cases. Citizens will find it difficult to obey the lockdown orders initiated by government if they don't have enough food to eat at home and they need to go out.
The items donated is to put smiles on the faces of about 2,658 persons in the state. Tessie Koka, NTA News. The news continues in Abuja after this break. Please stay.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 22 55 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Welcome back. The Swiss Embassy has stretched a hand of friendship to the Ministry of Women Affairs in the fight against violence and child trafficking. This is in view of the increasing number of cases recorded in recent times. Momso Damian Deti reports.
An exchange of contacts, deliberations on issues of interest and agreement on modalities of partnership between the Swiss Embassy and the Ministry of Women Affairs.
Having you to come and pay us this visit reminds me of the good working relationship between Nigeria and Switzerland. And I believe it will be strengthened even more now. Once again, I welcome you. I appreciate this visit.
The issues of violence, trafficking and child labor are burning matters both parties want to address.
That whenever the position of women is strengthened, empowered, and when they have the necessary means and space to develop for the benefit of themselves, and in the end, of course, then for the benefit of the society, then everyone profits much more, and it is in the interest of all of us that at least also see to what extent we can strengthen the positioning and the empowerment of women in all our programs that we're doing. More basically, the protection of the most vulnerable in the Northeast is of crucial importance.
With this, a deal is sealed to protect women and children in Nigeria. Momso Damian Dati, NTA News.
NTA continues live transmission of German Bundesliga. Details on Sports Update.